There is a lot of confusion about saturated fat and health. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, be greatly appreciated. Follow or subscribe if you aren't, and leave me a comment down below. I would appreciate that also. Thank you so much. So on to the topic of saturated fat. One of the biggest points of confusion in the health world, nutrition world, everything else, because there was a lot of early data with a lot of dogma, people had pushed back against it. What the problem we run into is that you had people who completely demonized it for a long time, without really sufficient evidence. And then you have modern evidence showing that in most cases, in the context of a balanced diet, it's either neutral or very, very minor in terms of negative effect, and that can be offset with other stuff. So accordingly, though, you always have that pushback. You always have people in fad diets and quacks and other people who want to go to the farthest extreme, who then jump up and claim it's good for you, it's a healthy fat, and it's always good, it's never bad. And then they will push, hey, let's eat butter, let's eat bacon, let's eat sausage, all this stuff that we know provably. Like those are three perfect examples. Perfect examples. These are proven in the lab to cause negative health markers, all three of those foods. Okay. Yes, and even people argue butter doesn't. I'm like, but it does. Go look at the literature. Butter stacked up to whole milk, not even close in terms of the blood work difference. Whole milk is pretty neutral. Butter is not, even though the butter came from whole milk originally. So this creates a ton of confusion, a ton of confusion. And you have people on that far extreme, and then they will go so far as to then instead of being objective with the science and looking at it and saying, okay, yeah, the science has said a lot of the risks are overrated, but when we go to these more processed foods, they're absolutely not overrated. Okay. What the data shows is that whole dairy seems to be neutral in terms of cardiac benefits and lipid profile and atherosclerosis. In other words, whole milk, even cheeses, whole fat yogurts, things like that don't seem to have a negative nor a positive effect. Now, we need to have a context where they also don't have a positive effect. There are other fats and foods that do lower these things. So this kind of clouds stuff a little bit. They're like, okay, and the same thing. It's like red meat, even steak, beef particularly, processed. Like when we don't start adding all the nitrates and really concentrating the fat like you see in sausage, bacon. So beef, for example, tends to have a very minor, especially if eaten in moderation, and even moderation could be a steak every day, depending on the person, is either somewhat neutral or has a very minor, but statistically significant, but minor increase in LDL. Okay. Now, do we claim the LDL is not a problem? This is, again, where people on the other end argue against the science. They argue against the overwhelming amount of data. LDL absolutely is the driver of atherosclerosis. This isn't even questioned anymore. There's all the researchers and doctors in that specific field have said, yeah, but we have all the data. We're looking at it. It is very clear cut and dry. Like that one's not really considered to be in debate or question. It's the question of how do we control the LDL? How do we get the HDL to LDL ratios good? How do we resolve this? Okay. Not that the LDL is not a problem. Elevated LDL absolutely is a driver of atherosclerosis. It will progress it. But we come over to the point of going, well, then is a steak healthy or not? Yeah, it can be, in the context of if your overall lipids are still in the healthy range, even if it slightly elevates LDL, it's not a concern. See how that works? But it's in the context of your overall health, your overall diet. And I'm very pro steak. I'm very pro beef. So keep that in mind. I grew up in Texas. I used to live, and my family owned a cattle ranch. I am very biased in favor of beef. I have a personal bias towards it. So let me be clear with that in the data. But even I will still say, it's context dependent. It's context dependent. You have to look at the totality of your diet. But if it's pushing your LDL up past about 100, like there's that range, then yeah, it is a bit of a problem. But it's like, can you fix other factors in your diet to bring that down? But if your LDL is staying in the normal range and you're having, an 8-ounce steak every day, you see where I'm about to go with this? It's fine. It's not a concern. Okay? But here's the context. What's going to keep that in check? Well, the other cardioprotective benefits of your diet. So this is the example of when we look at the whole milk. There's a lot of things in whole milk that are cardioprotective, and it seems to prevent the saturated fat in the milk from raising bad cholesterol. Okay, that makes sense. There's cardioprotective things in the milk. The calcium, the magnesium, the protein, the B12, and so therefore it seems to be pretty much neutral. It's not that the saturated fat content wouldn't raise your LDL. It's that the other stuff seems to counteract it enough that it's neutral. Okay, well that makes sense. And then when you eat the butter, the exact opposite happens. It shoots up. And this has been found in the lab and in the metabolic ward. Okay, so it's the context of you're eating a processed version of it, the junk food version of it, and not in balance anymore. This is where nuance matters. Same thing, a lot of the people who run the really serious keto diets, it starts going up. All right, let's say you start adding bacon. Well, now we're getting into ultra high fat, low protein, no longer high protein, extremely high saturated fat, all these nitrates, all these salts added. It's a refined food. It kind of wreaks havoc on your blood work. It's not pretty. It's not good. Same thing with sausages and things. Okay, these are a problem. These are processed red meats. We're no longer, hey, let's have a sirloin steak in the evening with some broccoli and a baked potato or something. We're now over to, we're removing, all the good stuff. And it's the same thing when people do a lot of the carnivores, or they do the keto to where they go too high on all the saturated fat. Then they're not eating the cardioprotective stuff like all the vegetables. Okay, again, what happens if you're eating a bunch of broccoli and spinach and all these foods high in antioxidants? They have fiber, they have vitamin K2, all this stuff in them. You have all this cardioprotective stuff that reduces these things. It will offset it because, again, it's about nuance. It's about balance. It's not a, hey, all saturated fat's bad. It's like when your diet is at a balance, it's bad. When you're over to eating the processed stuff and not eating the cardioprotective stuff, it's bad. Okay? But generally speaking, yes, it's wise to moderate saturated fat for the majority of people. But the thing, because we have this nuance now, you will always have people on the other extreme. Oh, it's always good. It's healthy. It's great. You should be eating it. Butter's healthy. Eat the fattiest cuts of steak. Eat 2 pounds of it every day. Well, no. Especially not if you're not adding in all the antioxidants and the fiber and other stuff in your diet. Okay, no, this is not good. But see, people can't seem to avoid these extremes and sit back and go, what if we just eat a minimally refined whole food diet in balance, and then a lot of these different things are permissible and not harmful. But it seems like that's too much for people. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.